Okay, so in the movie I'm Not There, there's a scene where Christian Bale, playing Bob Dylan, defends the fact that he's no longer writing political songs. And he says,
All they want from me is finger-point songs. I only got 10 fingers.
this is essentially how I have felt about the intersection between my creative work and politics for the last couple years. There's a couple different reasons at play here, and I started to get into one of them in my conversation with Chelsea from last week. I've muted or unlisted a lot of my older videos where I would talk about serious social issues, because I can hear myself adopt that tone of voice. That this is serious.
I hate that. That's why I can't make serious videos anymore. I've only made 2 about a topic, but I suddenly put on a different voice.
Yeah.
And it really irritates me because it makes it seem like I think I've got some sort of gravitas because I'm saying it when I don't.
Right. Is it? Do you watch a lot of Aaron Sorkin stuff? Do you think that's why?
Maybe,
I think that's why
but I like to think if that was why, I would say stuff a lot more eloquently as well.
I feel like that's where it comes from me is, I think a lot of my even just turns of phrase come from Aaron Sorkin. But I think that the adoption of any kind of gravitas, and especially in this day and age, the straight white guy offering an opinion thing, I see it so. It's what's weird is it seems like it's happening so much more often now, and it has become this reviled thing.
Yeah.
And it's so weird that both happen at the same time. That the growing awareness of it has almost caused more of it.
Yeah, I guess there's a lot of... I think it's because we just see a lot more young people. We live in a world, online, which is predominantly a slightly younger shift than, most adults at work.
Sure.
And therefore, it's a lot of people who have all the sort of new intelligence, all this belief in themselves, but without the self-awareness that they're not actually that wise. They haven't got any experience emotionally. They haven't sort of been battered by the world yet, so they're just sort of spewing their opinions. But they've never considered the other side because it doesn't exist to them. It's not that they necessarily dismiss it, they just can't possibly be aware of it.
So do you think it only comes organically and with getting older, the self-awareness? Because it seems like the internet is supplying so much more extra self-awareness that these people could be just they could go out and gather, but they don't.
I think it must do, because I think my mum always said to me, when you turn 28, you become who you are forever. And I found that hard to believe, but I think, I'm 29 now, and I feel like for the past 2 or 3 years, I've suddenly just gone, I don't care about anything. There's no point in trying to argue for something because I'll probably be wrong about it. I don't know anything, and I don't even really tweet anymore because I don't see why I would want 7,000 people to see that inane thought that I had. And then I see 20-year-olds tweeting every 30 seconds. And sort of, they get a lot of engagement from children.
Yeah.
But I don't think those people are going to learn self-awareness by the age of 28.
I guess it's possible that they might. I feel like they're going to learn it harder and faster. It's not going to be as gradual. And yeah, you're right. Maybe it'll take a little longer, Maybe by the time when they're 32... all the self-awareness that we accumulated, I'm 28 right now, and that's, same deal. I don't understand why anyone would ever want to hear anything I have to say ever. But it's more than just that. I stopped making videos about politics, mostly for another reason, which is just that they were bumming me the fuck out. Donald Trump makes me feel like Tommy Lee Jones at the end of No Country for Old Men, just exhausted and overwhelmed in the face of humanity's evil. But even Trump would have been easier to take if the years of failures of the Obama administration hadn't broken me first. I remember very acutely the horror and outrage that I felt during the Occupy Wall Street era when those videos of the cops just sort of casually pepper spraying kids. Do you remember the one where they were all just sitting and they got pepper sprayed? And I remember thinking, if President Obama doesn't say something strong right now. And of course he didn't. And of course, look where we are. It's too much to take. And I know it's important. I know it's critical to stay woke and all. But staying woke requires nerves of steel and a scabbed over heart. And I remember when staying woke, all you needed was a strong cup of coffee. Which reminds me, of course, today's podcast is brought to us by justcoffee.coop, folks. Just kidding. Obviously, nobody will ever sponsor this podcast. But I followed the story of Trayvon Martin very closely. And a couple weeks later, I watched the live feed from outside of Troy Davis's prison. They were in Atlanta, and Big Boy was there. And I saw everybody celebrate when they heard a rumor that there'd been a stay of execution. And then I saw when they found out they'd been wrong. My voice is starting to do that thing. Baba booey, unicorn tits, spider pants, Conor Oberst and Winona Ryder. All right, okay, I think we're back to normal. So what was I saying? Okay, am I blaming Barack Obama for every American killed by the police? Yes, but also, politics are too much of a bummer to follow regularly. Will they remain that way by the end of this episode? I don't know, maybe they'll be very interesting for a half an hour and then we can all go stick our heads in the cool, peaceful sand again before anybody else dies or before Donald Trump opens his mouth. We'll see what happens. Welcome to the last podcast. I'm your host, Zach Little, and this episode is about politics. Doing okay, man.
Can you say that on the internet?
Oh, you can say whatever the H-E-double hockey sticks you want.
Oh, that's fantastic.
That's the voice of my friend Dan, who, if you want to follow him on Twitter, it's my friend Dan. A couple weeks ago, Dan offered to get us press passes for the Democratic debate here in New Hampshire, and I told him to go for it, not thinking it would ever really pan out. I'm not a person who pursues those kind of things. Generally, I just regard them as impossible and don't worry about it. Dan is the opposite of that kind of person. He makes things happen.
Hi. All right, how are you?
Do you have credentials or an invitation?
We're picking up credentials, I
Okay,
think.
are you with the media?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, do you have any paperwork or IDs or anything like that that shows your media affiliation?
I have, we're with Portsmouth Public Media.
Okay.
So it's a public media. They don't really give us anything.
Go up here, take a left where all those vehicles are going, go down to the ice arena.
So we got in through Dan's connection with Portsmouth
Great,
Public
thank
Media, at least in part because I couldn't really claim to be the host of a podcast that didn't exist yet. Now is a good time to note that today's podcast is produced in association with Portsmouth Community Television.
Portsmouth Public Media.
Portsmouth Public Media. Sorry, Portsmouth Public Media. Hashtag the press room was in a hockey rink a few buildings away from the proper debate, which was broadcast via live feed to us on 50 or so flat screens. Picture a cleaner Buffalo Wild Wings, but in a hockey rink and full of members of the press. So we're on the floor right now of the filing. Check. So we're on the floor right now of the filing press area for the Democratic debate. It's December 19th. I'm at St. Anselm College, and I'm in Manchester, New Hampshire for the Democratic debate. America decides. To begin to decide what the basic parameters of their later decision will be. There were 60 or so long rows of tables with pens and mints and slips of paper explaining how to connect to the Wi-Fi, as well as glove and boot warmers because, hockey rink. At one of the ends of the rink, there were a bunch of TV cameras and lights and on-air personalities milling about, mostly looking at their phones. Once we were there, we met up with Ian, who was a friend of Dan's and who was wielding a couple of very cool cameras and a certain air of weary experience that was genuinely helpful for me as an overwhelmed newbie.
Because I've always thought that it was always connected to the venue.
The first thing we did after we got our credentials was we took a walk to find and interview some protesters.
Yeah, do you want to go around this way? I want to find the other sign.
Let's take a walk.
Yeah.
It's not that cold.
It'll get.
And actually, as we found them, they were
Yeah,
getting
he
kicked
told
out
us
by
we can't
campus
be here.
police.
He wants us to move back up there.
But they stuck around to
I can't
chat
say
for a
that
couple
this
of
is
minutes
the
before
right
going
time.
peacefully
In
on their way.
2008,
These
we
were
here.
far
And
left
we got
protesters,
something
I should note.
really
New Hampshire certainly has plenty of conservatives, but they are by and large the armchair variety.
With physical
Uh-huh.
violence.
I
Oh,
don't know
if
okay.
you mind having your voice recorded at all.
No, I don't mind. I don't
Okay.
mind.
Well, so I mean, you've been doing this for a while. You were here during the last election. You do a lot of.
Well, actually, in 2008, I was here at St. Anselm's.
Yeah.
I don't think I didn't come here 4 years ago.
Oh, okay. So you live here around here?
I live down by Nashua, Hollis.
okay,
Hollis,
cool.
New Hampshire.
So you guys are here, kind of talking about a couple of different things, money and politics, mostly.
Money and politics,
Yeah,
right?
in particular, like if you were to try to raise like an issue for anybody, people who don't really know that much about, money and politics and Citizens United and everything else that's worrisome, like. How would you phrase it to them to, scare the hell out of them, basically?
Well, to be honest with you, this isn't really my thing. I'm just helping out here.
Of course, right? My very first protester, and he's just somebody's friend who got dragged along.
My thing is warmongering.
Yeah.
And we have, one candidate that is a real warmonger, who I don't think I need to name.
Sure, absolutely.
He is referring, of course, to Iowa teenager D's Nuts, who has long advocated that we bomb Iran.
And we have one candidate that is the people's candidate. So you can figure out who I'm going to vote for in the primary. But I will not vote for Hillary Clinton in the general election, that's for sure.
What if it comes to that? If it comes to Hillary Clinton being the nominee,
Yeah.
What are you going to vote for?
I will probably, if there's a green, I don't know if Jill Stein is going to be on the ballot this year. She's a green candidate from Massachusetts.
Yeah, I remember her from a couple of years ago.
Yeah, I would definitely vote for her. Actually, she didn't get on the ballot in 2012, and I wrote her in, and I wrote Dennis Kucinich in 2008. But
so, if Donald Trump does not get the nomination and runs as a third-party candidate, if we end up with a couple of third-party candidates, do you think this could be another one of those years where like third-party voting actually makes a dent and kind of gets people talking about it again?
I think that if Donald Trump ran as a third-party candidate, it would ensure the election of the Democratic nominee. So.
Yeah, but I mean,
well, you can't win. There's only one path to good government available to us.
Yeah.
And I'm just hoping that Sanders will trounce Clinton in the primary.
Well, yeah, and hopefully a lot of people will watch the debate tonight and pay attention to some other stuff.
Debbie Wasserman Schultz doesn't want people watching the debate tonight, as I'm sure you know.
Oh, yeah.
Which is why it's on a Saturday night when everyone is out partying the week before Christmas.
Yeah, I was making the joke that that's why I'm covering this in audio form, because no one's going to watch it anyway.
Yeah, right.
So.
There you go.
Yeah, he looks like the commercial actor that played like the CEO of PlayStation and is in another commercial right now that I can't.
I think Martin O'Malley he looks like Ken, like the Barbie doll Ken during like a brief 1980s redesign.
Yeah, I think you're spot on.
Like he's the Crystal Pepsi version of Ken, where they changed him and they were like, actually, let's walk this back.
So we continued walking down the street, occasionally being redirected onto particular sidewalks by men with machine guns, which is shiver-inducing even when it's not freezing outside. Near the campus entrance, there was a kind of deliberately impromptu rally happening inside a fenced-off area of like 200 square feet. A lot of Bernie signs, some Hillary signs, and a variety of chants.
This is what democracy looks like! This is what democracy looks like! Black lives matter! Black lives matter!
I'm standing kind of in the Hillary section of the protest area. I've noticed that the Bernie people have way more catchy chants. Hang on, I'm hearing a Hillary one.
I believe that she will win! I believe that she will win! I believe that she will win! I believe
Zach
that she
here
will win!
is he's podcasting tonight. Well,
Yeah.
what will eventually become a podcast.
Yeah, there's a long lead time. Hey, I was just listening to the different chants. I feel like the Hillary people, they're missing out on an opportunity. The old school like Hillary. You ain't got no alibi, you Bernie. You're probably unelectable. Kind of catchy, right?
You had me
I'm gonna try and get
most
started.
of the way through.
Hillary. You ain't got no alibi, you Bernie. You're probably unelectable in a general election context. You haven't picked it up.
H-I-L-L-A-R-Y, Hillary, our nominee.
That was pretty close. Like 10 seconds later.
I decided to be cute and to try to access my inner Starly kind and talk to people in the rally about,
Like, what's the
the
vibe,
vibe.
among like Hillary and Bernie people, like side by side, kind of agreeing, but also obviously very not agreeing. Is it like Jets and Sharks, or is like everybody kind of cool?
Everyone's very cool. It's
Yeah.
Bernie way. It's about bringing people together.
Yeah, and
Totally.
and
And respect for everyone.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right, so there's no like bad feelings about what was going on recently with this like the DNC and Bernie
No,
and
that's, you have to rise above it all. If you're going to govern and be a part of the community, we're all here together for the same purpose, to make a great country.
everything. Yeah. Well,
And
that's
to be
cool.
represented by everyone. Yes.
Well, it does seem like, obviously there's some competing chants going on.
Uh-huh.
It seems like the Bernie folks have some catchier ones, but I think it's just because Bernie is like, it's a very sharp, easy
Yeah,
sound.
yeah.
It fits into a chant a little easier.
Yeah.
We're
But
just maybe a little more enthusiastic.
That could be too. And, also maybe like a little more accustomed to cold weather, It's like, that's...
are you saying that Hillary?
I don't know.
I haven't
Yeah.
really
We
noticed.
bring a lot of passion and a lot of energy to all the rallies. So when one starts, we all get to feel it, and we feel the burn, and we jump all
We
in.
feel the burn. We don't feel the cold too much.
Yeah, how are you? Oh, you're here repping clean energy.
Yes,
That's
I
cool.
am.
So you're kind of like, you can cross between like the Bernie and the Hillary camps.
Yes, we're going back and forth and starting lots of cheers.
Okay, that's cool. Like, what's the energy cheer that you get going?
So
you
we've
got?
been saying, we want solutions, not more pollution. We want solutions, not more pollution.
I like that. That's catchy. Gets the point across.
Thank you, unifying theme.
Yeah, pollution solution. That's a good rhyme.
Yes.
All right, cool. Yeah. Hi, Hillary people. Hey, so I've just been talking to people along the line here. Like, what's the vibe between like Hillary, Team Hillary, and Team Bernie? Like, is everybody getting along and being cool?
You should talk to one of the volunteers down that way.
Yeah. Why? What happened?
No,
No,
we're staff members. We're not authorized to speak on behalf of the campaign.
Oh,
But
you don't have to speak on behalf of the campaign. You can speak on behalf of just the vibe in the room.
oh no, thank you. But
All right, cool. I'm on my way.
One moment in the rally area was kind of strange. I watched as one Bernie supporter waved this Bernie flag around, and he kept yelling, "Bernie, Bernie!" And another man was holding a phone, taping him, and he was yelling, "Stop waving it! Stop waving it!" And for a second, I was thinking about, what are the optics of this? Why shouldn't he wave the flag around? Does it seem too mocking of patriotism? Is it because the flag is white? Eventually, Dan told me it was because the guy with the phone was trying to take a panoramic picture. Why do people ever try to use that function? Just stop, guys. So we walked back to the rink, and we loaded up on free coffee and cookies, and then the debate started. The three of us we're 3 rows ahead of NBC, which feels like a 30 Rock joke. It is actually pretty cool to see like the machinery of the political media starting to kick into action. There's 700 reporters in one room. If this room were to like just get knocked off the face of the earth by some act of God or fall into a vortex or something, I mean, Donald Trump's campaign would be over tomorrow.
Tonight we have a different debate than the debates that we have been allowed to have so far. Because tonight is different because of this reason.
Because I don't think the American people are all that interested in this. I think they're more interested in what we have to say about all the big issues facing us.
Let me agree with Governor O'Malley and let me agree with Secretary Clinton. Discuss Senator Sanders. Let's move on right to some of those issues.
It was interesting to watch the debate with members of the press who reacted very differently to nearly every moment on stage. When Bernie apologized for the data hacking scandal, the people in the actual audience barely blinked, but a roar went up from the rink. I assume several bets had been won and lost in that moment. So the row of tables behind us had seats for a variety of outlets. There was a TV station in Texas, there was BuzzFeed, there was a blog called Independent Journal. So I looked them up, and I read that they were, quote, the premier social publisher for all things American and millennials. which is an interesting phrase. All things American and millennials. But anyway, I followed them on Twitter for a couple of days. That weekend, Tina Fey and Amy Poehler hosted SNL. And Tina Fey, as you may know, is a frequent enemy of the liberal social justice-y sector of the internet. So, over the course of the following week, I read a lot of tweets bashing Tina Fey, and I saw plenty of others about this 30 Rock parody that Sarah Palin had inexplicably made. And I started to think about how our culture is often very binary. Yes or no, with us or against us, upvote or downvote, Tina Fey or Sarah Palin. When the left criticized Tina Fey, weren't they giving something to Palin, whether they liked it or not? Eventually I saw exactly the kind of tweet I was looking for to illustrate this, and it was a tweet from Independent Journal. It specifically mentioned Tina Fey making fun of Sarah Palin on SNL, and then it mentioned that Sarah Palin had, quote, the perfect response. So I retweeted it kind of gleefully, like, look, young millennial liberals, this is what happens when all your infighting morphs and the culture turns against those who were at least trying to help you a little. A couple days later, Independent Journal posted something else, just generally in support of Sarah Palin, and I looked at their stuff a little more closely, and I realized that they're just a right-wing website. Their staff was all so young that it did not even enter my mind as a possibility that they'd all be Republicans. So much for my little pop culture theory, which, is fine. All right, let's talk debate room cookies, okay? Dan, I see you've gone for the oatmeal.
I gotta go for the oatmeal raisin cookie, and I feel good about myself. I don't feel bad. I don't feel guilty. And that's the important thing. You don't want to come away from these things with any guilt.
Yeah, I'm a mini M&M cookie man, and I hate myself, so, point taken.
All right, so, that's a lesson for next time.
It's just the M&M, the mini M&M density in the cookies. It's like, it just can't be denied. There's so many mini M&Ms in this cookie. It's more mini M&M than cookie, whereas that... I don't want to sound too much like Bernie Sanders, but it's like 85% oatmeal for sure. I feel like the top 5% of the raisins in there only go to like the bottom 4% of your intestinal tract,
Well, that may be the case. I can't see what's going on in there, so right now...
Obviously, we don't have all the facts on the ground. We gotta wait for there to be an independent investigation before we know all the facts about these cookies. But just, the view from here is that the American people support both oatmeal cookies and mini M&M cookies. They will not stand for crackers, generally, most of the time, especially better cheddars. Americans know those are imposter crackers. They have no place in the American discourse. I'd be really bad at presidential debates. There was a section where the moderators asked Hillary if her plan was a promise. And if I got asked a question like that, like, is it a promise? My immediate response, just knee-jerk, would be like, fuck you, you dweeb. No, it's not a promise. Go to hell.
And just like Social Security, we need common sense. Let's calm down a little bit more.
Yeah, let's tell the truth, Martin.
It seems like it's actually getting colder in the press pit, as if like the temperature in here is like inversely correlated to the color of Martin O'Malley's neck. After the first commercial break, we could still hear George Stephanopoulos and the ABC crew talking on their microphones. Nothing juicy happened. One of them hadn't been able to hear Nate Silver on the satellite feed, and they were just asking what he'd said. But you could feel everybody in the room be like, oh, this could be something if this continues. But during the next commercial break, instead they were pumping this kind of garbled commercial feed into the room. It had the video from one affiliate and the audio from a different affiliate, which only upped the hallucinatory quality of the whole thing for me. And speaking of hallucinatory, after the debate, the front section of our rink became the spin room, which is exactly the way it looks on the West Wing or what have you, except in an ice rink. Campaign representatives come out, and behind them, a handler holds a big sign identifying them, and the press converges. Some reporters have microphones, some have cameras, some have little MP3 recorders, and some just have their phones open to the voice memo app, and it's kind of nice that it's that simple sometimes, right? The first guy that I ended up standing next to, almost by accident, turns out to be Hillary Clinton's campaign manager, Robbie Moot.
To recruit and to radicalize.
What do you think she meant when she said that ISIS is not what we need to, or we are where we need to be defeating ISIS?
Well, what she was referring to there was the recent Security Council resolution that has created a political pathway in Syria that has put us in a better position to begin to defeat ISIS.
Listen to this motherfucker drop sound bites like it's nothing.
Well, I think the more that Trump is out there, the more that the Republican field is out there, the more these differences are clear on what's at stake for the middle class.
We couldn't help but hear her and think that she has an eye on the general election. Was that part of your goal during this debate?
We are totally focused on this primary right now. First Iowa, then obviously here in New Hampshire, where there's a very tight race. We're focused on earning every single vote, every single delegate, and then we'll worry about the general after that.
Damn. So I decided to get started by approaching low-level targets, people who were not mobbed by the press and who looked a little bit ashamed by the big blue arrow sign being held over their heads. At first, it didn't go very
Mr.
well.
Hamrick?
Yes, sir.
Hey, I'm Zach Little. I'm with Portsmouth Public Media.
Hey, Zach, how are you?
Okay, so listen, what we're doing right now is we've been talking to people trying to test their ability to spin things really well. So what I was thinking I was going to do was just make a sort of benign comment about the weather, and I want you to spin it into a comment about foreign policy and why that's important. Okay?
That's okay. I'm going to pass on that, I think.
But then I found a couple of really friendly representatives from the Martin O'Malley campaign. They were so energetic that I barely even had to ask them questions.
Zach, nice to see you. Okay, so tomorrow morning, other than Star Wars jokes and stuff about Hillary coming late to the podium, what do you think? What are the headlines going to be?
I think the headline's going to be Martin O'Malley won this debate. He showed an incredible, his incredible executive experience. He talked about some of the actions and the ideas and the legislation that he put into place as mayor, as governor. And he talked about what he's going to do as president. I thought it was his best debate, and I thought he won it.
They should be talking about the fact that the Democrats offered substance, the Democrats offered solutions, the Democrats offered a hopeful future for this country. They should also be talking about the one clear standout on that stage was Martin O'Malley, because as Martin O'Malley talked, every single issue that was brought up, Martin O'Malley could say, this is something I've actually done. And I can speak to that because I am from Maryland. So when I tell you it is not spin, it truly is not spin. We did raise the wage. We did keep college tuition low for 5 years. We did have the #1 schools in Maryland. We did end the death penalty. We did pass marriage equality. So when I tell you that these things actually happened, and they were passed with Republican help. He did not have total Democrat majority. He had to get Republicans on board to get his legislation passed, which means that this is someone who knows how to work across the aisles. This is someone who knows how to forge consensus and build new relationships. So when he can even take that to foreign policy, when he talked about building coalitions to bring about changes in the Middle East, he's actually done that kind of thing because he sits down at the table. And it's not so much that he will stand up to people. He will, but he will also sit down with people to talk, to make sure that we work through very difficult issues. I proudly support Governor O'Malley. I've worked with him. I was his state party chair in 2011, and I have been with him now since 2011, and I've seen this man. I know this is a man of deep conviction who truly governs with his head, but also with his heart to do the right thing. Not the popular thing, but the right thing. So that should be the headline tomorrow.
He was very energetic.
He was.
And that was great. I think that part of the reason that everybody was having so much fun was he was causing a lot of chaos. Does he have a lot of practice with just bowling over moderators like that?
I think he's been successful in politics because of his passion, and I think that came through loud and clear tonight. One of the early exchanges which I thought he won was on gun control, and this was a question that the moderators posed to Secretary Clinton and Senator Sanders, and they were going to shut out the governor, and this is a guy who's got a dedicated record of actually doing something about it as governor, and the NRA took him on and lost. So he made sure he got in there, and I thought it was an incredibly strong moment, and so it shows the type of leader he's going to be.
All right, so this no-fly, no-gun list thing, do you think this is an actual, is it just kind of a nonsense bumper sticker thing? Is there something more real that we could probably do?
In terms of gun control, tremendous things that we should do, not the least of which is putting forth some of the reforms that Martin O'Malley put in as governor and will put in as president. But that, I think, your point underscores the frustration that many Americans feel with the Republican Party, that so many members, virtually every member of their team running for president right now, refuses to even cede the common sense notion that if you are on a no-fly list, you should probably have to wait to purchase a handgun. But there's a tremendous number of things we can do. Martin O'Malley's done it, and obviously it's a monumental issue in this country that we need to deal with and we need to get serious about.
I also just got to say, what kind of coffee do you guys all drink? Because you're all so energetic.
Well, you know, it's easy to be energetic when you have a candidate that you really believe in, a candidate who stirs passion in you. You know, I mean, I understand when people get up and they shout and they harangue and they talk about what we need. Yes, you can talk about what we need, but Martin can talk about what we've done. That's the difference. So it's not difficult to get psyched about Martin O'Malley when I talk about him, because I've seen him work. I've seen the success that we've had in Maryland, and it is time for new leadership. It is time. And, you know, he sits in that beautiful sweet spot where my mother is inspired and my daughter is inspired, and here I am with the easiest sell in the world for a candidate that I truly believe in.
I like O'Malley, actually. He's like Tom Cruise at the beginning of Mission Impossible Rogue Nation. You know, he's scrappy enough to hang off the side of that Hillary-Bernie jet plane as it roars into the stratosphere. Demented fucking smile on his face. He was the only actual candidate that I was physically close to that day.
Bernie Sanders is up talking to the media in the balcony above us. I can tell it's him because the whole balcony is shaking because of his hand gestures.
But I did briefly talk with some genuine politicians, and I felt a feeling approaching being starstruck.
Senator Shaheen? Hi. Hi, I'm Zach Little with Ports Public Media. Listen, here's my question for you, okay? It's winter in New Hampshire, the primary's coming up. Is there ever a conversation just about the fact that it's so cold here all the time, maybe this is just a really bad idea and we should move our primary to like July?
No, that's what makes it special.
Yeah, I mean, we're actually standing right now on an ice rink, which I want to know, like, whose idea was that?
Because, you know, it wouldn't be the New Hampshire primary if you didn't have to go door to door and below zero temperatures and lots of snow, so
yeah,
we're counting on it.
When candidates come here who are like not from around here, from like warmer climates, do you give them any tips? Like, they gave us all boot warmers. Have you been like handing those out to candidates when they drop by your office or anything like that?
Listen, it's been so warm this fall, people don't have to worry about it.
If you're wondering, I guess the last time I felt genuinely starstruck was at the MTV Movie Awards when Emma Watson walked by me, and then Dave Grohl followed shortly thereafter. Like, as far as famous looking goes, Emma Watson and Dave Grohl are among the very most famous looking, if that makes any sense. The Dave Grohl of the Spin Room that night was former Congressman Barney Frank, who I spotted almost as soon as he appeared in the room before real reporters found him.
Frank, I just wanted to say, hey, I think you're awesome. How you been doing?
So I just approached. I approached with no question in mind, which is probably good because I'm not sure I would have understood whatever answer I got.
Well, I think they will talk some. I'm not sure a lot of people will be talking about it because it's not as dramatic as theirs. I think the questions about, well, there's one sort of difference, which is, and we have this, and I think Secretary Clinton mentioned it, Sanders, we have this dilemma. We want to get rid of the Islamic State, but if you don't also keep Assad on your list, then the Sunni Arabs won't join your fight. And how you balance that? I mean, I thought it was a pretty sophisticated discussion. But on the whole, I think they'll be talking more about the Republicans, which is fine with me because it will be negative.
Sure. All right. Hey, man, well, have a great night. Thank you. I just talked to Barney Frank, who is a hero of mine. I understood every sixth word.
Who cares, though? You know, it's Barney Frank. After that brief little interview, a handler seemingly noticed my affable face and kind of schlubby, amateurish, dog hair covered look, and they asked if I wanted to chat with the president of St. Anselm, the school where the debate was being held.
Hi, how are you? Hey, I'm doing all right. So, okay, obviously, having the press here on the ice rink, that was symbolic in and of itself, but having the debate here at this college at St. Anselm, while people are talking about college affordability and everything else, what's it mean?
Well, it's important that that issue was raised tonight. The cost of education and trying to contain costs, but also the ability to pay back loans and make it affordable for families and students.
Well, obviously people in the education community know a lot about this stuff. Have you consulted with any of the campaigns? Talked to you? Had a chance to take Bernie Sanders aside and say, listen, man, here's the thing.
So I don't agree with free tuition. So
yeah, obviously, of course, turkeys are also against Thanksgiving.
I'm more in line with what Secretary Clinton talks about, having skin in the game and trying to make it affordable. The thing that wasn't raised tonight, and I was surprised about this, is that antitrust laws prohibit higher education for schools to talk to one another. Mm-hmm. Okay, so we would like to reset the gross prices and have a conversation about how we can do it, if we speak to one another, the Justice Department will haul us in. We need an exemption from antitrust laws to talk about the real cost of education.
All right. Here, my other question for you is this. I bought this Beaches and Shores Coastal Morphology textbook 10 years ago. I'm pretty sure all the science is totally outdated. What's the buyback policy around here? How much am I going to get for it?
You probably should look into getting a wood-burning fireplace.
I keep seeing somebody walk by with a Debbie Wasserman Schultz sign, and by the way, try to say Debbie Wasserman Schultz sign 3 times fast. Anyway, she never seems to be attached to it. I think this is a DNC smoke and mirrors technique. Maybe there's a Debbie Wasserman Schultz hologram that we could talk to, but I'm standing at the wrong angle. I can't see it. Now I'm just standing right in the middle of the spin room. Interviews are happening all around me. The political sausage is getting made. A guy named Jesus Garcia just walked by with his handler. Looked like a cool guy. But really, seems like now's the time to just stand here and reflect. The debate has happened. Words were said. Positions articulated. Memes memified. What have I learned? What does it all mean? These are the kind of questions that I could put into a closing statement at a debate. And then I'd have something kind of snappy to say about ISIS at the end or something. On the way out the door, we finally caught a spectral glimpse of Debbie Wasserman Schultz, who did look like a picture you'd find in the dictionary under the word unflappable.
3 are on
Also
a Saturday.
vaguely elfin.
So we certainly didn't say, hey, please schedule our debate on a Saturday, but that's how it worked out programming-wise.
And we've seen Jeff Weaver, the Sanders campaign manager, say in his words that you put your thumb on the scale to benefit Clinton. Were you upset by that kind of remark coming from one of the campaigns?
You know, as party chair, you get a lot of bumps and bruises, and they probably don't want to punch hard in other directions, so the party chair is an easy target. I'm just working hard to try to make sure that we can get ready to launch our nominees to the White House, and I'm looking forward to continuing to do that.
Hey, do you guys want to hear what the voice of Bernie Sanders' campaign manager sounds like? Here you go.
Well, that means that they're to stay away from the campaign and not to contact the campaign employees until the investigation is complete.
And are they paid?
That's what it sounds like. We turned heel and bailed then, reeling in the general direction of our car and leaving the spin room spinning on. For all I know, they're still back there, hearing about the many merits of Martin O'Malley. On the drive home, Dan plotted our return for the Republican debate in a few months, while I contemplated our experience. Spectacle. I was heavy on spin, but short on conclusions.
The Republican debate in February is going to be even more spectacular.
Yeah, maybe I'll have more to say about politics after the New Hampshire primary, which at the time of this recording is still a month away. Maybe by then, Donald Trump will be unmasked and we'll all know his true identity. A pile of misprinted Bibles and angry crows trapped inside a partially melted and sun-bleached Ronald Reagan Halloween costume. Maybe by then, the liberal dream of Bernie Sanders, which is getting more and more shimmery and ephemeral around the edges as time goes on, will already be over. Maybe not. And maybe Dan and I will go to the Republican debate to jump into that particular pit of snakes and see if we can find our way out. Maybe not. Our trip was a blast, but felt mostly inconsequential, sort of like the rest of this primary campaign so far. I don't think I'm wrong for wanting to ignore this whole scene. But, thank you for listening, of course. This episode of The Last Podcast featured the voices of Chelsea Fisher, Dan Freund, Ian Servin, Martin O'Malley, Hillary Clinton, Bernie Sanders, Senator Jeanne Shaheen, former Congressman Barney Frank, Debbie Wasserman Schultz, and many others. Music performed by Mother Sauce, as well as The Mild Revolution. Special thanks to Dan and Portsmouth Public Media, without whom none of this would have been possible. To support this podcast, rate it and write reviews on iTunes, tell other people to subscribe to it, and download it onto all of your elderly relatives' computers.
Ride again as he rode away. Don't take your guns to town, son. Leave your guns at home, Bill. Don't take your guns to town. He sang a song as on he rode, a gun hung at his hips. He rode into a cabin. rattled town, a smile upon his lips. He stopped and walked into a bar and laid his money down. But his mother's words echoed again.